This is Part 2, Episode 127. In these circumstances, how could he keep himself calm? Faintly feeling chills on his back, Long Haochen was fully aware that it was fortunate that he managed to keep calm, and didn't dare advance prematurely, otherwise his mind could go mad. The worries that were filling him could be pushed down, but they were bound to affect his resolution gradually, affecting the pure heart of a God's chosen one. His exchanges with the divine snail of sun and moon were not many, but one of his most important points was that the God's chosen one of light was not the same as the others. His greatest advantage is simply the perfection of his soul and gifts. This is something that Cair, as the one chosen by the god of death, couldn't compare to. But this perfection was also his biggest issue. Being too perfect permits imperfections to appear easily. As a proof, at the times the past divine snails of sun and moon appeared, didn't the God's chosen ones all sink into evil? Not only diverging from saving the continent, they instead became sinners. This was especially the case for that divine gigantic dragon or the master of the Tower of Eternity, slumbering Calamity Elux. Therefore, self-awareness is a very important point to the God's chosen ones of light. At the time the divine snail of sun and moon departed this world, he left Long Haochen only a shell, but before departing, his final strength helped Long Haochen clean his heart. This was not something he did, but something he transmitted, instructing Long Haochen how to do. Right, self-awareness. Only by remaining always self-aware, keeping a clear mind and clear heart, the Scion of Light will remain himself forever. Thank you, divine snail of sun and moon. Long Haochen murmured sincerely. Sitting on Long Haochen's back, Yating sensed the changes in Long Haochen most effectively. As a light fairy, her affinity with light was incomparable to anything else in this world, because her body could be described as a manifestation of light. At the time Long Haochen just started cultivating, in Yating's senses, her master was only just silently absorbing light essence. But as he calmed down, and really entered in meditative state, Long Haochen's body appeared to be transparent to Yating's eyes. Taking breaths successively, he seemed to have entered a state of brilliant body. And the light essence Yating helped him absorb started to be insufficient for him. In fact, it was after her fusion with the Saint spiritual stove that Yating gained the ability to process spiritual energy. Through her, light essence didn't only become extremely pure, but also highly concentrated. The fact that Long Haochen managed to keep such a monstrous absorption speed made it so that at each breath of this, his internal spiritual kept strengthening. This was one of the benefits in the brilliant heart of a Scion of Light. With his heart devoid of any impurity, Long Haochen gained the greatest blessing of the Goddess of Light. With light essence entering him naturally, how could his cultivation speed not be fast? In this warm light essence, Long Haochen gradually soaking very deep inside. He gradually let go of everything burdening his heart, gathering all his attention in the comprehension of light. The brilliance around his body started to gain intensity, to the extent that through the crystal ball, Yang Haohan took notice of these gradual changes. However, this divine knight of defense and planning couldn't possibly watch Long Haochen for too long. The war was on the horizon, and he had many other matters to handle. This month was known in the later generations' record as the continent of Shimor Dalu's moon bath. Demons and humans had amassed Ransa for several thousand years, and let it burst out all at once. With the 6 great strongholds as battlefield, the demons attacked while the Temple Alliance defended. Reportedly, in every of these main battlefields, when looking down from a height, one could see blood evaporate in the air. This was a meat-grinding war, be it in attack or defense. The demon side's loss was far higher than the humans. But the demons' military was also a lot more populous than the humans. At the start of the battle, the humans' defensive instruments proved out to be of massive use, causing great losses to the demon side. But as the battles progressed, these instruments started to be ruined. Now all the humans could rely on was the terrain advantage. This was a showdown confronting 2 races, without need for war mobilization. All the warriors in the Temple Alliance used their flesh and blood to protect the last bits of human territory. On the rear were plains, where their families of everyone lived, the Knight Temple, the Warrior Temple, the Assassin Temple, the Mage Temple, the Priest Temple and the Spirit Temple. Powerhouses of any of the temples had only one thing in mind in this holy war: fight with their all. At the start of the Holy War, the financial resources accumulated by the Alliance's great auction house proved to be essential. The various auction houses became the biggest providers of weapons and tools using spiritual energy. Through a strict process of collection in the great auction house, the various powerful weapons, magical crystals, and even many types of magical cannons-like weapons were transported to the front line. This was wealth accumulated through thousands of years. The whole process was not even totally clear to Phonelinger because many of the depot of the great auction house were classified as total secrets only to be unsealed at times of great wars against demons. Rubbing her eyes out of tiredness, Phonelinger leaned on a seat, her limpid eyes filled with an intense worry. Will the Alliance really make it? The demon's arrival was just too sudden. In fact, the demon god emperor actually took a person as condition of ending. And that was this captain. Weren't they right in the heart of the struggle? Thinking of this point, for some reason, Phonelinger felt as if her own heart tightened. Faintly, a tall figure appeared in her head. A bright bald head, and a straightforward smile. The most unforgettable thing was the imperceptible sense of satisfaction she had when he looked at her. Is he still alive? With a slight shiver, Phonelinger unconsciously tightened her fair hands. Right at this time, knocks could be heard. Enter. Phonelinger immediately suppressed her surging emotions. Lowering her head, she refocused her sights on the account book. Miss Linger, a letter has come for you. A staff member opened the door and placed a letter on her desk, before performing a respectful salute and leaving. A letter. Phonelinger unconsciously seized that letter. It was a parchment with a magic imprint on, for secrecy's sake. If forcefully taken, the seal would disappear and cause the contents of the letter to self-destruct. Only a specific incantation could open it. Beside this scroll was a letter, hinting to the incantation in question. Phonelinger had a lot of experience receive letters in this kind of parchments, but at the time she discovered the words hinting on those incantation words, she got up in excitement. Call out my name, little pure flower. Ha ha, bastard. It's that bastard. Only he would call me this. It's the bastard Simas Jan. So you were still alive. At the time she said these last words, Phonelinger couldn't stop her tears from falling down. In this period of war, just being alive seemed to be the greatest happiness. Dang. With a loud sound, the magic imprint on the parchment was deactivated, and the scroll unfolded. That person's handwriting wasn't praiseworthy, but by chance the words were still legible. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed. No one expected that, but the first one to come out wasn't the clearly stronger Long Haochen, but Han Yu. In 3 months' time, and you learnt all the abilities of the 6th step he was given, including many secret techniques. The illusory cave is the place where the real techniques of the Night Temple were present. Inside are not only the conventional techniques, but also secret techniques left by successive generations of divine knights. Those who gained the right to enter all gave heroic contribution to the Alliance, and would become part of the new generation that would lead the Alliance. Long Haochen and Han Yu had the qualification. Besides Long Haochen being a god's chosen one, they made the unprecedented accomplishment of destroying a demon god. This feat alone bestowed them the qualification. After coming out, Han Yu was informed that Long Haochen was, against all expectations, still inside. Learning this, he chose to cultivate behind closed doors without hesitation. One of the conditions Yang Haohan gave him was to become a Mithril Foundation Knight. Although he already learnt all the abilities at the 6th step, his spiritual energy was still far from the 10,000 units. Yang Haohan came to observe Long Haochen who knows how many times, but his expression wasn't as calm as the beginning. On the contrary, it started to show some worry. The Holy War had been going on for 3 months already. The dragon-resisting mountain was subject to enormous pressure, and as divine knights, both Long Jianying and himself joined the battle long ago. Just 2 days ago, he was in a large struggle against the demon god of death Saminaga. In terms of cultivation, Yang Haohan was quite inferior, but by the means of the great might of the divine throne of defense and mercy, he stopped the advance of the demon god of death. The Saint Knights and Templar Knights of the Temple Alliance were all blood-soaked every day, resisting the enemies in the dragon-resisting mountain pass. The ice and snow on the ground in over a kilometer circumference was dyed red, and both sides' casualties were incalculable. Although there were natural resources kept in reserve in the dragon-resisting mountain pass, it was not the same as the other strongholds. In a situation of siege, it would be very hard to get supplies from the Alliance, and even news was difficult to be transmitted. With such consumption, Yang Haohan didn't know for how long this mountain pass would last. The demons outside already got reinforcements 3 times, and the damage inflicted by the vile environment to the demons was very high. Their fighting strength was far from being displayed at their maximum because of this. See, the several hundred ice mags defending the dragon-resisting mountain pass also proved out to be of decisive use. They all drew support from the natural stronghold formed by the dragon-resisting mountain pass, unceasingly reinforcing its defense, attacking the enemies. Haochen, how is it that you are not showing the slightest movement? Looking at the enormous crystal ball in front of him, Yang Haohan murmured resolutely. Indeed, since entering the illusory cave, Long Haochen was seated and cultivating in that place. At the start, Yang Haohan praised him for being able to cultivate calmly, but now it has been 3 months, and Long Haochen was still the same state, cultivating cross-legged all this time. His body let out faint golden ripples, and his whole body had the transparent feeling from the use of brilliant body. At every breath he took, his body spread out a golden radiance that flickered indistinctly. Without a doubt, he wasn't encountering troubles. But wasn't this meditative since too long? Yang Haohan, whose experience regarding cultivating was plentiful, understood that Long Haochen was now in a state of deep meditation. But it was unheard for a single session of deep meditation to last so long. Time passed, day after day. Both humans or demons had a limit to their workforce. After the frantic attacks of the first few months, the demon attacks gradually slowed down. The demon god emperor passed 2 diplomatic notes to the alliance, demanding Long Haochen, only being answered with flat rejection. As for Long Haochen, it appeared as if he had evaporated, not appearing from beginning to end. The battles were still ongoing, and just as the alliance hoped, no real demon powerhouses came out in the initial stages, both sides displaying their strength little by little. However, the strangest thing in the alliance's eyes was that the demon god emperor, even in his position as the greatest demon powerhouse, had yet to join the battle. And that was not only him, but also the moon demon god, and the star demon god who had yet to come out. And in the same way, the devil dragons, moon demons and star demons had all yet to be deployed. Right, because they had yet to take part, the Temple Alliance did not dare lower their guard even as the battle dragged on. The guards of the 6 forts were all under extreme pressure. In fact, one should know that in case the demon god emperor brought the moon and star demon gods in the battlefield, none of the forts could possibly hold out. Of course, the demon god emperor, moon demon god and star demon god would inevitably face the ultimate resistance from the strongest demon hunt squad, and that would be the inevitable decisive battle. After analyzing their intelligence, they deduced that it should be due to some last restraining fears in the demon god emperor's heart that he didn't launch a final clash. After all, in case they didn't turn out successful, the loss would be enormous. Although the demon side held the advantage, they had no way of totally overpowering the human side. The most likely result was to see both sides mutually injured. And the mutual destruction of the both sides could happen in many ways. If the cost for this result was the life of the demon god emperor, the demons would definitely not be able to bear that. After all, against the humans' creativity and knowledge, plus all the resources the Temple Alliance accumulated over all this time, they would surely be a lot faster to stand back up. In contrast, an absolute powerhouse such as the demon god emperor couldn't be something they could regain in 1 day or 2. A prolonged battle could definitely not be said to be advantageous to the demon side, but the demon's ferocity surpassed the Temple Alliance's expectations. As the demon side didn't have sufficient food supply, the corpses in the battlefield became their means of nourishment, be it the human or the demon corpses. This cruel fact was a large blow for the humans. It turned out that the demon god emperor didn't mind having a prolonged battle. 1 year following the start of the Holy War, the Temple Alliance's total population went down by 1/10, while the amount of demons declined by 20%. The setback was considerable for both races, and the whole continent could be said to be in total turmoil due to the Holy War. In a tent in the midst of the demon god emperor's army, Feng Xiu was sitting upright on his throne. The whole tent was actually devoid of any demon troops, absolutely empty. Only one person was sitting inside, and that was the moon demon god Agaz. Your Majesty, if this goes on, we don't know for how long will last. The food is really too scarce, and food is starting to rot. When the weather warms up, the situation will become more serious. Just like the summer of the last year. Agaz started to show some worry in his face. Feng Xiu asked calmly, "Second brother, then what should we be doing?" Agaz let out a cold smile on his face. "Decisive battle, against humans. They cannot possibly stop joint full attacks from the 3 of us. As long as we smash one of the human strongholds, our armies will be able to invade them thoroughly. The other battles will undoubtedly get affected by that. And at that time, all humans will die, and we will gain control of the whole continent." The demon god Feng Xiu shook his head. "If I wanted to thoroughly wipe out humans, I wouldn't have been waiting until now. Wouldn't the start of the Holy War have been the perfect moment?" "Oh?" Agaz gave the demon god emperor a puzzled look, clearly not getting what he meant. Feng Xiu stood up slowly, both hands behind his back. Gazing at the door of the tent, his look seemed to pierce the heavens, setting his eyes into another world. In truth, if we hadn't given humans time, they would have gone extinct since long. Maybe we didn't have the ability to wipe out humans at the time of our descent in this world, but with the elapse of time, starting from the second generation of Demon God Emperor, the overwhelming majority of the continent was controlled by us. We had already had a holy war directed against humans, and they lost completely all strength. But my ancestor, second Demon God Emperor, didn't choose to do so. And he left a secret instruction, ordering his descendants that no Demon God Emperor may lead the demon armies to annihilate all humanity. Do you know why? Certainly, what Feng Xiu said was an absolute secret. Hearing that, Agaz was stunned. Your Majesty, I wouldn't dare. Agaz stood up in a haste, bowing down in respect. Feng Xiu strolled to his front, supporting his head with a hand. I am willing to disclose this secret to you because my faith in you is absolute. We cannot annihilate humanity, because if we lose them, demons are bound for destruction. Coming to this world, we relied on plague to create the demon race. At the beginning, it was in truth only us 72 brothers. Our innate talents have an immense defect, and that's ourselves. You know clearly where we are from, and how we came to this world. Although we can pass on our strength, there's nothing more we can create. If we wipe out all humans one day, or reduce them all to slavery, given the current demon mentality, a short time later, humans are bound to go extinct from the continent. Following this, all races will suffer the same fate. In the end, only us demons will remain. But how can we survive only by ourselves? The demon god Emperor Feng Xiu suddenly had a depressed and frustrated look. If only us remain, there will be no enemies left to find. And we will only be able to destroy ourselves. And in the end, we 72 brothers will have no choice but return back through the 72 demon god pillars, as this world will have become full of barren land, just like that world we used to live. Thoroughly destroyed. Agaz calmly nodded, yes. We were unable to create anything, much less make use of the things in this world to create new ones. In front of our darkness attribute, any organism would hardly take a satisfying shape. You are right, if humans are really destroyed by our hands and entirely ruled over, we will only be walking towards destruction. Feng Xiu smiled to him, it's good that you understand. For this reason, the Temple Alliance was actually raised in confinement by us demons, so that they don't grow too strong. We couldn't let them be wiped out, and had to let them develop. Only this way would our living conditions become better. Wars are just a show. Since we are raising them in confinement, we cannot let them become too powerful either. Meanwhile, it's only by borrowing their hands that we can reduce our own numbers. Achieving a balance will be most profitable. And that's one of the reasons for me launching this war. After over several thousand years of growth, the forces humans accumulated are just enormous. We had to weaken them to such extent. Otherwise, sometime later, their horn of counterattack is sure to blow. This is something we cannot afford. To them, making this holy war a prolonged battle seems very effective, but isn't it the same for us? There will be a need for a decisive battle, but the time has not come yet. Agaz wrinkled his brows, but what about Austin Griffin? What's to be done about him? Looking at the humans, we won't be able to reach an agreement. The demon god Emperor's eyes became cold at once. We need to destroy Austin Griffin, that's a matter of fact. No matter what the cost is, he cannot be left alive in this world. Compared to our self-destruction, Austin Griffin is a far more terrifying thing. Andromalia's death was the alarm bell to us. He is another important reason for this holy war. Agaz replied, but can we really catch him? We'd need to have control over every single place in the world for that. Feng Xiu shook his head, that's not the case at all. Third brother went in seclusion for 1 year. I had the premonition that he will come out today. As the brain of our demon race, he will tell us what we should do next. Hearing him say this, the moon demon god Agaz was greatly shocked. Are you saying that third brother? Seeing him appear, the demon god Emperor couldn't help but feel excited, unconsciously stepping forward. Third brother, how is your body? With a smile on his face, Visago shook his head. It's nothing, boss. I just lost some of my life expectancy. But this time's great prophecy summon was worth it. Want to hear about the result? Feng Xiu forced a bitter smile. If I had the choice, I would have preferred you to avoid doing that. You didn't just lose a bit of your life expectancy. I can sense that your life force has decreased by at least 100 years. And the life expectancy of your Star Demon clan is originally not that long. This time, your body has been quite damaged. Beside him, the moon demon god Agaz also walked by, holding Visago's shoulder. Although he didn't say anything, his expression was full of emotion. Emotionally, the demon god emperor, moon demon god, star demon god were without doubt the closest of the crew. But the demon god emperor had, after all, his own obligations, as the ruler of the demon race. If the survival of his race was threatened, even his own child would be sacrificed without hesitation. For this reason, the moon demon god and the star demon god were actually his closest people. They were like a pair of brothers for the demons. So even if the death demon god Saminaga's fiend clan was considerably powerful, it would pale in front of the star and the moon demon clans. So in front of Agas and Visago, Saminaga was very respectful. Visago smiled, "All right, second brother, no need to be like that. I'll feel bad if you treat me that way. Life force can still be recovered after being lost, you know. Let me tell you the results then, they are very important to us now." Reaching this point, his expression became serious, and vaguely, one could see his eyes gradually turn into a limpid orange color. The demon god emperor nodded to him, his eyes filled with concern. Visago continued in a serious tone, "This year, my great prophecy technique was used to the greatest extent, using up my only chance of prediction in this life. In accordance with boss plan, the forces we'll use in this war against the Temple Alliance are mostly the low and middle grade demons. Meanwhile, we'll be doing our utmost to conserve our supreme forces. This way, we will retain an overwhelming advantage compared to them. According to my predictions, if this holy war keeps going, the result will be neither side winning. So third brother, do you think we should take the initiative to finish the holy war as soon as we can?" the demon god emperor asked. The star demon god Visago shook his head, "No. Quite the opposite, we have to keep this holy war going. We just have to avoid compelling the humans to their last means, because only this way will Austin Griffin come out." Reaching this point, his expression became grim. In comparison, Austin Griffin was a lot more severe than that terrible force kept by humans that was beyond their control. This year, my great prophecy targeted Austin Griffin for the longest time. His current growth has advanced to some extent already. Although that's not enough for him to threaten us for real, he's by no means weak. Finding him through this war against humans is impossible. But Austin Griffin's threat is growing by the minute. We will have few chances to kill him, among which the greatest one will be in roughly 2 years. From my estimate, he will appear in demon territory at that time. That's our best chance. The only premise is that we are to pressure the humans to a great extent enough during the Holy War, or he won't necessarily come to our rear." The demon god emperor's eyes glistened, brimming with a killing intent refrained inside him. But even so, Visago and Agas could feel a powerful pressure being released from their boss. Visago raised his head, enveloping the three brothers in an orange light. His lips hummed, muttering some words. Only Feng Xiu and Agas were able to hear these words. Right at this time, in the crystal ball, the body that had remained unmoving for a year shook for a moment. This shudder didn't look serious, but the two Divine Knight instantly stood up in reaction, opening their eyes wide. The shaking around Long Haochen started to grow in intensity, taking the shape of layers of golden light spreading out from his body. The shaking around his body seemed to resemble seismic waves. An accident? Long Qianying was greatly alarmed. "No, it's not that." Yang Haohan grabbed Long Qianlong, who was about to rush out. "I heard about a technique that Long Haochen created, called ripples of light. Through the vibrations of spiritual energy it produces powerful attack and defense. He shouldn't be having an accident." Right at this time, the shaking around Long Haochen's body became lighter, both his hands lifting up. Unfolding in slow motion, his whole body smoothed, seemingly becoming more lanky. The soft light floating around him stretched out. Immediately, a vast golden glint spread out of him, in full flow. One could faintly see that on his brows, chest, and belly, balls of lights were moving rhythmically. Suddenly, his eyes opened. At that instant, even the Divine Knights Yang Haohan and Long Qianying felt the surrounding air tremble. A light burst out from his eyes, spreading around his body. Sweeping the air, full of substance, it bubbled forth to the whole room. Along with Long Haochen, Yating got up and opened her eyes. Compared to Long Haochen, she didn't look much different, but her eyes had gained brilliance and tranquility. And her body seemed to have gained even more aura of life. Yating had already acquired a physical body, but if one was to touch, they'd find out that her body was ice cold. Only at the times of launching light abilities would it warm up to some extent because of the fluctuations of light. And the surface of her body would feel stiff at touch. After all, she was made up of dense light essence, her body wasn't real. But in this instance, not only her life energy gained in substance, but her whole body felt more real. In her soft movements, one could see that her skin seemed very flexible, just like a real human beauty. Even advanced Elven gave off a lot less substantial feeling. Yating spread out her wings at Long Haochen's back, making a hugging motion. The next instant, in a glint of light, she disappeared in Long Haochen's body, merging inside. Compared to 1 year ago, his body wasn't much different. To him, time seemed to have stopped during this year of deep meditation. Not having the slightest filth on, even his beard and hair didn't grow. Only his eyes were full of light. Just as Yang Haochen had determined, his cultivation rose to the peak of the 7th step, his internal spiritual energy reaching 30,000 units. This year of deep meditation was a period of preparation to Long Haochen. It cleaned his heart and his spiritual energy. After reaching the peak of the 7th step, he attempted to break through a few times, but didn't find the path of the breakthrough successfully. So he didn't keep forcing himself, letting this long session end. Seeing Long Haochen disappear, Long Qianying and Yang Haochen couldn't help but turn back and look at each other. Exchanging glances in disarray, the two divine knights had a kind of strange feeling. He's going to study techniques? Not going to attempt to break through? Long Qianying reacted the first. Yang Haochen replied, not easy to say. I believe that he's trying to find a chance. Do you think we should tell him the trick to break through the 8th step? Long Qianying replied, we should originally have told him, but seeing how fast he reached the peak of the 7th step, I don't really want to. If he can get to the 8th step from the peak of the 7th step through his own comprehension, his future breakthrough to the 9th step will have a great advantage. After all, these two bottlenecks are different routes to the same destination. We have to believe in him, and let him slowly settle down. Yang Haochen nodded silently. I also think that's for the best. For how long have I been cultivating? While coming out from the illusory cave, Long Haochen muttered irresolutely to himself. He felt that he had been spending a very long time cultivating, wanting to terminate it several times, but feeling the monstrous growth of his internal spiritual energy, he chose to endure loneliness. The 3 spiritual cavities in his body were entirely full, and his whole body was full of energy. How should he break through the 8th step? While walking in the illusory cave, Long Haochen reflected on this very important question. Maybe this was because he had been sitting for too long, but his whole body felt a bit sore. His qi and blood was rapidly flowing under the urge of his spiritual energy. Suddenly, the sight in front of him changed. A door appeared in front of his eyes, with the number 7 on it. Long Haochen stopped his advance, looking at that 7. Thinking to himself that he cannot directly break through from the 7th step, and this should be because his accumulation was not enough. My spiritual energy is already sufficient, I should find inspiration in abilities. Maybe I'll achieve some results this way. Pushing the door with his hands, it felt very firm. Light rushed forth, and Long Haochen's body seemed to have become a transparent golden crystal. To him, using brilliant body didn't come with an excessive consumption. The brilliant body he had as a God's chosen one had a special property, making it a perpetual brilliant body. Just by using spiritual energy normally, the boost from brilliant body would immediately appear, without need to consume extra spiritual energy. With a stronger cultivation, the boost of one's natural talent to his strength would increase. With a low sound, the heavy door opened. It felt like there was no air, and Long Haochen felt an incomparable awe from its opening. Drawing back slightly, Long Haochen used his hands to support himself, taking a defensive posture. His movements were slow and steady, facing a sharp intent that took material shape. The instant his movement stabilized, an intense golden light lit up from divine obstruction. It was a shame that Yang Haohan's crystal ball was unable to watch the situation in this inner part of the illusory cave, or he would find out with great shock that Long Haochen was making use of an essence-level divine obstruction during this 1 year of deep meditation. It wasn't only his internal spiritual energy that gained a large boost. His body benefited from the overflowing spiritual energy, both his external spiritual energy and mental force achieving large progress. One could say that through a year of stabilization, Long Haochen processed all the fighting experience, training processes and happy encounters, distilling it all to the greatest extent. When compared to a year prior, his gain of spiritual energy aside, he became a lot more stable in many other aspects. The door released a sharp energy that didn't last for long before coming loose. On Long Haochen's face one could see his heartfelt respect. Undoubtedly, in this room there were records of knight abilities of the 7th step. His precursors had left their techniques here, just like their lives. They were dead already, but their blood would forever remain in every living knight. Stepping over the door, there was a 10 square meters large hall, with doors on either side. On the door of the left was a symbol of shield, and on the right door were 2 swords. These were the symbols of Guardian Knight abilities and Retribution Knight abilities. After Long Haochen pondered for a little while, he still chose to head for the door with a shield engraved on it, pushing the door. Immediately, a thick feeling invaded his senses. Southeast stronghold, bang, a bright silver light exploded in high altitude. This reduced a dual-headed demon eagle to fragments. A massive shield was swept horizontally, this time disintegrating the dual-bladed demons that were just done climbing above the city walls. Clad in spatial armor, Wang Yuanyuan stood proudly at the entrance. Her silver armor was covered in bloodstains, making it even hard to tell its color. The silver light that just ascended was the space-splitting sortie fired by her divine soul shield, and the swipe was revolving splitting shield. At this time, she was treading on the city walls. In her left hand, a sawtooth-looking chopper of 2 meters length. Every time its blade fell, a demon would fall out of the city. By herself, she covered a width of 20 meters on the city walls. To say nothing of the enemies, even the male warriors from the warrior temple didn't dare approach the area guarded by Wang Yuanyuan. The sawtooth chopper in Wang Yuanyuan's left hand was 2 meters long, its handle reaching over 2/3 of a meter. Although she controlled it with only one hand, it showed a might close to dual-handed weapon. Glistening in bright silver, not only the back of its blade, even the blade itself was made of the same kind of sawtooth. In a flash of silver light, the bone cuts made by the sawtooth let out sour sounds, and although the volume of its handle was large, its attack speed remained incomparably fast. It seemed as if her hand was controlling a silver bolt of lightning, shooting up and down. Right, the great chopper in Wang Yuanyuan's hand was made of the material they acquired in the swamps of gloom. This year, she suffered a total of 3 severe wounds, and returned to the battlefield before recovering completely from them every time. The Southeast Stronghold asked her many times to take up her role as a military officer, commanding the armies to fight, but every time, she rejected their offer. She asked to stand in the top front of the warriors, going to kill the enemies, even as a regimental commander-ranked warrior. Rao _ a dark green dual-bladed demon of the 5th step leapt on the city walls, howling at Wang Yuanyuan. Bang _ after making a full turn, the divine soul shield returned to Wang Yuanyuan's hands. Against the dark green dual-bladed demon, all Wang Yuanyuan did was a simple movement, a chop. From Bloodstorm, silvery light burst out, letting out strident lacerating sounds. The lacerated space of black color was bordered in silver, taking the shape of a dual-colored bright blade, instantly reducing the previously rampant dark green dual-bladed demon to shreds. Timeless Strike, ability used by spatial warriors of the 6th step. Used through Bloodstorm, its power was raised 1 level above. Suddenly, Wang Yuanyuan's carefree move came to a sudden stop, looking afar. A black dot was enlarging in her line of sight. Careful, Yuanyuan. With a shout, a tall figure rushed to Wang Yuanyuan's side, glinting in golden color. A thick tower shield appeared along on the ground. At the time that black dot that came from afar and enlarged at astonishing speed reached the city walls, it reached a terrifying volume. That was impressively a powerful demonic bear. This was a besieging method the demons thought of. Using giant catapults, powerful army forces were thrown straight at the city walls. If this kind of attack patterns was used a year ago, that would be like throwing mice at a cat, just looking for death. A simple spell used by a mage would suffice to stop that. But with the progress of the war, the mags of the Temple Alliance were constantly priority targets of war. Outside from the Mage Temple, the count of mags guarding the other great temple's stronghold were already pitifully few. The body of that demonic bear struck against that tower shield violently. The knight holding the tower shield was forcibly repelled by the strike, letting out blood from his mouth and nose. The force of the demonic bear was really terrible, and the one thrown was a demonic bear of the 7th step. With its great defensive power, in case it managed to stand on top of the city walls, it would cause great damage to the southeastern stronghold. The one who blocked this attack from the demonic bear for Wang Yuanyuan, wasn't that Zhong Fangfang? At the start of the Holy War, all the Demon Hunt Squad went in a state of war, all of them participating in the battlefields. After a year of violent battle, Zhong Fangfang's Demon Hunt Squad was no longer left. Out of the 6 of them, only the assassin and him were still alive. The others all died at this southeastern stronghold. It could be said to be an unexpected joy for Zhong Fangfang to have reunited once again with Wang Yuanyuan. His comrades died one after another, and he suffered many serious injuries. It was thanks to the spiritual stove of second life he acquired in the illusory paradise back then that he managed to make it back alive one time after another. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.